NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center funded a study on why civilizations fail and what's happening in the world right now. And according to a report in The Guardian, that in turn was reported on by Murray Dobbin in the Tyee, titled, when it was reprinted on Alternate, it was titled, or probably retitled, Downsized Democracy for 40 Years, Here's What You Get. According to the Guardian report on the study, I'm quoting the Mr. Dobbin. The study focused on population, climate, water, agriculture, and energy as the interrelated factors that determined the collapse or survival of civilizations going back 5,000 years, back to Gilgamesh. According to the Guardian report on the study, these factors can coalesce and lead to civilization's collapse if they create two critical social features. And then he quotes from the report, from NASA, this NASA-funded report. Quote, the stretching of resources due to the strain placed on the ecological carrying capacity and the economic stratification of society into elites, the rich, and masses, or commoners, the poor. According to the study, these two developments played, quote, a central role in the character or in the process of the collapse in the demise of the Roman, Hun, Mauryan, Gupta, and multiple Mesopotamian empires, as well as the Maya. You know, the oldest known, in Western civilization, the oldest known story, written story, is the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's somewhere between 500 and 7,500 years old. It comes from the first empire in the West, Western Empire, which was in northern Iraq, in the city of Ur, in the state of Uruk, or the country of Uruk at the time. A little anecdote, the Bush administration, when they invaded Iraq, there was this insanely valuable site, which is the remains of the city of Ur, which is now out in the desert. And I'll explain why in just a second, why it's out in the desert. But the remains of the city of Uruk were accidentally paved over to make an Air Force base when we invaded Iraq. 7,500-year-old history, the oldest city in the world. But in any case, if you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, what it says is that, you know, the storyline is that Gilgamesh wanted to build a mighty city. Ur, or Uruk. One is the city, one is the state. He wanted to build a mighty city. And so he went to the forest. And there used to be forests all across northern Iraq. It was green and lush. Now it's desert. And he went up there into those forests and he cut down the forests. But in order to cut down the forest, he had to kill the god who protected the forest. His name was Humbuba. And so Gilgamesh went up and cut the head of Humbuba off, the forest god, and then stripped northern Iraq of forests and used that wood to build the city of Ur, or of Uruk, rather, in Ur. And they started this network of irrigation using water from the Euphrates River. And eventually, over a couple of generations, Humbuba, who was the god of all things, or at least the regional god of all things, discovered that Enlil was the god of all things, and he discovered that Humbuba's head had been cut off, the forest god was dead, and so he got really upset, and he cursed Gilgamesh and Ur. And suddenly the crops didn't grow anymore. Well, what actually happened was they were using unsustainable agricultural practices by irrigation, and the salt was building up in the soil to the point where the soil became sterile, and that's why northern Iraq is desert now. It was environmental degradation. At the same time that the society became so stratified that it was basically rich and poor. And it led to the collapse of the Sumerian Empire, the first major empire. Are we doing the same thing again? Now, apropos of that, here's a story. It's reprinted today over at, it's from Yes Magazine. It's over at Democratic Underground. By 2025, public transportation in Helsinki will be so good that no one living in the city will have any reason to own a car. The Helsinki Regional Transport Authority is piloting an on-call minibus service called Kats Plus. The service uses an algorithm and a smartphone app to combine the affordability of ride-sharing with the on-call service of a taxi, but it's a bus. Riders hail buses on a smartphone. An automated system routes and reroutes the fleet to create the most efficient service for patrons heading to the same direction. It's cheaper than a taxi, more convenient than a bus. Free Wi-Fi, storage for bikes and strollers included too. Compared to with parking jams, parking fees, and car maintenance, on-demand public transportation in Helsinki is looking pretty good. Now, why won't this happen here? Because nobody can make a buck off it. No billionaire can make a buck off it. It's not privatized. In Helsinki, in Denmark, they are doing this for themselves. We the people. They still have a functioning democracy in Denmark. But you will not find anything like this in the United States that's not run by some oligarch, by some billionaire. Because we have become an oligarch.